Welcome to Content Camp.
Hello, everybody, and indeed, welcome to another edition of Content Camp. Today we have Stacy Renee, a nurse in Indianapolis. Stacy, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Yeah, so first off, I'm curious, what's the process of becoming a nurse?
I can describe it as mental boot camp because it's a pretty stringent education program, and the reason for that is because our nurses are governed by what's called a state nursing board. And so, as opposed to your regular college students, which they're governed by their college curriculum and their grade standards, our curriculum and our grade standards are made out by the Board of Nursing. So ours is more stringent than a regular college grade level.
Mm-hmm. And is the curriculum you're learning, is it just like, this is a spleen, this is a toe, or is it more like in-depth than that?
It's very in-depth. There is an anatomy and physiology part of it, and part of that is textbooks, lecture, and then in some schools, part of that is also lab, which means that they would actually bring a cadaver, which is a dead body in, and you would actually get to see what the particular anatomy looks like on a human body.
Interesting. So going out of nursing school, I mean, is it easy to get a job at a hospital, or is that another whole obstacle?
So that's a great question. So again, the credentials are governed by the State Board of Nursing, and so not all nursing schools have the same credentialing. So if you go to a school who does not have the correct credentialing, then you would not be able to work in a hospital. But if you went to a school who had the correct credentialing, then getting a job right out of nursing school in a hospital is pretty easy.
So I know this is going to be an intense question very fast, but what's like most gory story you have as a nurse?
Oh yeah, we're going to go right into it. Okay. Wow. Can I have a minute to think on that one? I wasn't prepared for that one this early on, so give me a moment for that one.
Maybe kind of related to that question, Stacy, is part of your training must be kind of how to deal with intense situations, I would assume. Was that part of your education? And maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're dealing with the human body and you're dealing with human in nature, it's pretty intense because, you can think you're walking into one situation and it can completely on a dime turn into a whole nother situation altogether. So you have to be able to think very quickly on your feet. And then another thing is you have to be able to have critical thinking, which is imperative to be a good nurse, because you have to be able to, when you're seeing something happen, you have to be able to figure out why it's happening and what you need to do to fix it. Yeah.
So you have to be able to adapt to your situation fast.
Yeah, you have to be able to adapt very quickly. Yes, because things can turn around, pretty quickly. You might think you might have a, pretty minor situation, and then the patient could start to code, which means that the patient's heart stops beating, they stop breathing, and then you have to do, what's called like CPR to be able to save that person's life. Yeah. But in answer to your question, Landon, when I first became a nurse, I worked in a prison. And so at the prison, because that's we're dealing with a whole different type of population as opposed to outside of prison. The things that happen in there, are very much different in a whole different scenario than what I would find in like a regular hospital scene. So I don't know how much dad or how Corey he wants me to be able to get, but there was an incident in the prison where one offender murdered another offender, and it was pretty gory.
Okay, Ben, what's your question?
So this question, I think is very interesting. Where did you go to nursing school?
So that's a great question. I actually did not intend on being a nurse. I started out as a medical assistant. And the training for medical assistants are not trained to work in a hospital. Medical assistants are pretty much trained to work in health clinics, doctor's offices, and that type of setting. So I started out as a medical assistant. I did that for 5 years. And then in doing that job, what I learned was that I had nowhere to move upward. I mean, if I had not taken the initiative to become a nurse, then I would have just stayed a medical assistant. There's no room for advancement into like management, or anything like that. So I did that for 5 years, and then knowing that I wanted to advance my career into possibly management at some time, at that point is when I decided to go back to nursing school. And the good thing about nursing school is there are many options that you can take. For me, I did the 1 year program, which was when I graduated from that, I came out as an LPN. And then, and I was able to work as a nurse. And then I was working as a nurse that first year. I also enrolled in the registered nurse program and did that program. And then after that, I became a registered nurse. So there's many tracks that can be taken to become a registered nurse. And I went to school I started at Ivy Tech. I have 2 degrees from Ivy Tech, and then I went on to Indiana University to get my registered nursing, and I actually have 2 nursing degrees from Indiana University.
Okay. Owen, what's your question?
So I was wondering, what is the biggest lesson you've learned from being a nurse?
Yeah, that's a really great question. To never expect anything, because as I was saying earlier, you just, when you're dealing with medical, you're dealing with people, number one, and they can always surprise us no matter what situation you think you're in. And then when you're also dealing with, medical things that are going on at the same time, anything can happen. So that's probably been my biggest thing about being a nurse, is just to always expect the unexpected.
What was your most unexpected situation that you've been in as a nurse?
I like you, Landon. Oh my goodness. There's just been too many as a nurse. I've been a nurse for 23 years. And so to be able to pinpoint one single one, I honestly don't know if I could. I think, again, it probably goes back to my prison nursing when I first started, just because of that type of population we were dealing with. And you just really never knew, what was going to happen from day to day. That was probably the most times that I was found things that were unexpected.
Okay. Owen, what's you got another one?
Yeah. I was just wondering if you have, like, if you've ever had a really memorable patient. Like, yeah, have you ever had a really memorable patient?
I have had some memorable patients. I mean, you can't. Yeah, I have. You can't go into nursing and not remember somebody or some situations. I just feel like that's why we go into nursing in the first place, is to be able to help people, and be with people and help them live their best life. So yes, I've had one that comes to mind, especially is when I was a brand new nurse working in a nursing home, and there was this little lady who was just very difficult. Just did not want to be there, was not happy, and she was going to make everybody know it and make everybody else unhappy around her. And I learned that I kind of gravitate towards people like that because I kind of looked at it as a challenge, and I just made up my mind that I was going to make this lady love me one way or another and make her happy. And it took me a long time, but I finally did, and she ended up having a better stay and situation out of it. And I learned the most probably from that situation in human to human, interaction, and which I took a lot of what I learned from that situation with me into the rest of my nursing and how I dealt with situations and difficult people.
Well, that was one of your favorite, most memorable patients. What's one of your patients that you wish you would forget?
Yeah, I have some of those too, unfortunately. There are, again, it goes back to the prison, environment, just working with those. And just one thing I did when I first started working in the prison was, at the time, and even still now, you can go online and look people up and see what crimes they committed and why they were in prison. And so I would do that. I would, you hear things in there, and people say, oh, this and that. But I'm a type of person, I want to know on my own. So I would find out what they did. And then what I learned from that situation was the next time I saw that person was I wasn't seeing that person, I was seeing that crime. And I can't say that it affected how I treated that person as a nurse, but it definitely affected how I viewed that person as a person. And I stopped doing that when I realized that it was affecting me in that manner, because I can't be a nurse and have anything that's going to even potentially change the way that I'm gonna treat somebody. And so that was another lesson learned, was I didn't need to know. I just didn't need to know. And so from that point on, I never, but in learning, before I learned that, and I learned some things that some of the people had done, that was disturbing. Those are probably my most disturbing situations.
So in an everyday hospital or day, I guess, how, where exactly do you come in when, in the process of treating a patient? Because from my understanding, nurses aren't people performing surgeries and stuff like that. Where do you, are you just kind of the caretaker, or where exactly do you come in?
So I never worked in a hospital as a hospital nurse, but I've worked in the hospital in a different capacity while I was in nursing school. I also worked at a hospital, but in a doctor's office setting. So to answer the question is that, we are there to be the eyes and ears for the doctor. because he's not, doctors come in, they do their rounds, and you guys have probably heard that term. I don't know if you guys have heard that term or not. They come in the morning, they check the labs, they check any tests that they might have ordered. They come in and talk to the patient about what the plan is for that particular day, and then they're gone. They see their patients and then they're gone. They're going out to the office. Usually they come in early in the morning, before office hours, and then they're gone and they're going back to their office hours. So, they're not there with them all the time. And that's where the nurses come in, is where we are there all the time with them. Nurses generally work 12-hour shifts. So there's 24-hour nursing care. So we are the eyes and ears for that doctor to let him know if there's any status changes in that patient, so that he knows how to move, and to change the situation.
So as like, what other jobs can you get as a nurse? I didn't know that. I just assumed that nurses worked in hospitals.
So when that's a really great question. When I first started nursing, the options, kind of were at the time, they kind of were like hospital, there were a few other options. Again, they're correctional nursing, doctor's offices hire nurses. But as time has moved on, nurses are almost in every aspect of industry. We work now in the insurance industry. We work in the legal industry for to help the lawyers, like in medical cases, review medical documents to help that lawyer with his particular case, medical case, So, we work in factories, as occupational nurses. So there really honestly isn't any industry anymore that nurses aren't working in some capacity. So the opportunities are endless for nurses.
Stacy,
Wow.
does that mean it's pretty good job security then? Like if a nurse is unemployed, maybe they're not trying very hard.
Well, they're either not trying very hard, or they have done something that has alerted the nursing board, and they've had to maybe like have some probation or something on their license, something like that, which does make it more difficult, in that situation to find jobs. People will hire nurses because there's such a nurse shortage. So there are, there are industries that will hire those nurses, knowing that they have to do the supervision and things like that. But it's probably the best, one of the best, I will say, as far as job security goes.
Okay, Ben, what's your question?
So I don't know if anybody took this question, but what I'm probably thinking about saying it. What is the worst situation you have ever been to?
As far as a nurse?
Yeah.
When I was working in the prison.
That's quick.
Yeah. Because those, those situations come up very quickly, and they're usually pretty brutal and intense, to have to maintain life, to be able to maintain life and things like that. So yeah, some pretty brutal things I saw at the prison.
Did you ever have to treat patients from like prison riots?
No, we didn't have any riots or anything like that at the time I was there. Those are very rare, actually. But, they do fight each other, and they do try to hurt each other for whatever reason. I treated a guy that had come in that had, third-degree burns from someone had poured boiling water on his skin. And so, he was coming in and we were doing dressing changes on those wounds for him, so they would find very creative ways to be mean to each other.
Mm. Mm-hmm. So where else have you worked other than a prison?
So, one of the reasons, when I became, again, like I was saying earlier, I started out as a medical assistant, and then I decided I wanted to be a nurse. So once I got to be an LPN, I was like, okay, I'm here. Well, what I found out at that point was, if I had went on to get my RN, I knew that it was going to open up more doors for me as far as opportunities go, because even still to this day, there are some jobs that RNs cannot do for whatever reason. So I knew that once I got to become an RN, I was going to have more opportunities. And that's really what I wanted. I wanted opportunities. I wanted to be able to try different jobs to see, where I fit in and what I liked. And so when I first became a nurse, I had, several different jobs. I worked at the prison, as I mentioned. I've done long-term care. I've worked in a pediatric doctor's office. I've worked for the government, reviewing documents for Medicare and Medicaid, which are the government insurance companies. I've also worked in hospice. I don't know if you guys are familiar with hospice, but hospice is end of life care. And so once I started doing hospice, I stayed there for 10 years. That was my longest. Because once I started doing hospice, I really liked it, and I stayed in it for 10 years.
That was like the nursing home?
No, hospice is where you go into people's homes, and sometimes into nursing homes if they live in a nursing home. And these are people who are terminally ill, which means they have an illness that's going to cause their death, or they're just dying, or it's just the end of their life period. It's just time. Their bodies are wearing out. And so what we would do is we would go in and we would make sure that these patients had everything they had and needed to be comfortable as they're transitioning through that period.
So it was like they knew they were gonna die. They just wanted to be comfortable when they did.
Correct. Yeah. Good question.
Okay, Owen, what's your question?
I was wondering, if you weren't a nurse, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
I would be doing something in medical. I don't really know. I don't know, maybe like a pharmacist, or something along that lines. I'm just not, I know it would be something in medical. I'm just not sure exactly what.
So, let's lighten the mood. What is who is your favorite patient, from where you are now?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I have several because I'm in a whole different industry now. I'm doing what's called non-skilled home care. And so I have a variety of patients from adults to children. And so I have several adults that I really like. These people are not dying. They do not have a terminal illness, but they do have some kind of disability that has them to be on Medicaid, which again is a government, basically a government insurance program. And so when they're on this Medicaid, we have to go in and do periodic assessments. We have to see them on a every other month basis. And so that's what I'm doing now, and I really love it. And I have several of my kid patients that I like really well, that I enjoy seeing. And then I have some of my adult patients as well that I really look forward to their visits and look forward to seeing them as well and seeing how they're doing. So I don't have one in particular. I have several.
So what disabilities have caused them to be in that state of medical need?
Yeah, sometimes it could be a medical situation. Like I have one patient who has had a stroke. And so do you know what a stroke is?
Yeah.
Okay. So that has caused him to have some leftover disabilities where he needs extra care. And then I have some patients, mostly my kid patients, who were born with some kind of disability. And those vary from Down syndrome to cerebral palsy. I have several kids that have cerebral palsy. I have several kids that have autism.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well,
So isn't a stroke just like where one side of your brain just like shuts down completely?
Yeah, a stroke is where there's something is happening in the blood vessels of the brain that is not allowing blood to get to that particular part of the brain. And that's what will cause the stroke. And
okay.
yes, it does usually happen on one side or the other of your brain.
Ending on that note, we're kind of running out of time. And Stacy, we have one last question we like to ask everyone. A kid who's not here today, unfortunately, David, he came up with this question. It became tradition to ask this question. The question is, if you had to give one phrase or word, I guess it could be a phrase.
One quote,
Yeah, one
phrase
quote.
or quote.
To the world as like advice, what would it be?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good one. I know it's so cliche, but I think it really, really goes a long way. Is just, it doesn't cost anything to be kind. I mean, I move in my daily business inside and outside of work, in a state of just kindness, no matter where I'm at and who I am dealing with, whether it be a fast food worker or one of my patients or families. I mean, because I don't know what they're going through in their life, and I just feel like that just moving with kindness is just always the way to go. And I think it really, and you can sometimes I feel like I can really tell how much they appreciate just that little bit of kindness that they get, because I think that they just get so much unkindness for no reason, and I really feel like that I can tell sometimes like how much they really appreciate just that little bit of kindness.
Hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stacy, for talking to us.
Well, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too. It's been very interesting.